Hey everyone, I'm Sid. I'm a current student at Make School studying computer science. And today I'm bringing you the four big tips that you need to know to get on the right track to your programming career.
Even though I'm a software engineer right now, I'm also a fitness instructor on the side. And my entire social media presence is only about fitness. And so people that know me on social media wouldn't even know I'm a software engineer. So there's no cookie cutter mold. You can be whoever you want to be and still be a programmer.
That was Leslie Kim. She's our guest for this week. And she is a senior software engineer at Openfit and a successful fitness instructor. She's got an awesome story and a lot of insight. So I'm going to let her do most of the talking. Don't forget to stay tuned till the end so you don't miss a thing and like and subscribe if you like these videos so that we can get you more. Let's get started.
I've sort of been all over the place early on in my career. I just didn't really know what I wanted to do. I've always loved math. I've always loved arts. I've dabbled in things like production in the film industry, thought about doing architecture at one point. I have also done some graphic design and things like that, a lot of painting. And actually, during my time in the film industry, I was working at a stand up comedy club as an executive assistant, sort of to, just pay the bills. So while I was there, the CEO asked me to manage the website. So that's actually kind of how I got into programming. I started working with our developers and started debugging a little things here and there. And that's eventually what led me to my career as a software engineer. So yeah, I've been all over the place and found my way here eventually, and I love it.
I love that. I can really relate to that story. I'm definitely someone who's bounced a lot or bounced around a lot before jumping into tech as well.
Mhm.
So I really appreciate you sharing, and I appreciate you being here to share your experience.
Yeah, of course. Happy to be here.
Some of the questions that I want to ask you are just about what advice you have for people who are maybe interested in tech or pursuing a tech career, who might be in high school or just starting out in college. And I know that a lot of us just starting out have some struggles with, mindset and just basically just staying balanced. And I feel like you might have some input on that. So the first big question that I have for you is what's the biggest mindset tip that you would share with people who are interested in learning to code or people who are interested in a programming career?
I think a big mindset tip, not necessarily just for starting a programming career, but starting anything really, is really trying to define what your goal is and coming back to that often. Whether you write that down in a journal or maybe on a bulletin board or somewhere where you can see it, just making sure that that's always present and top of mind because every sort of goal that you try to accomplish is going to be a journey. And most of the time, there might be milestones and there might be points where like you have finished something technically, but then you keep going. And so I typically like to find the big milestones and figure out how am I going to achieve this. So if it's something in tech, I remember when I started becoming interested in becoming a software engineer, I first wanted to figure out if I would even like it. Because like if you don't, sitting at a computer for like, 8 to 10 hours a day and programming probably is not that much fun. So I was like, all right, first milestone. I am going to see if I like this. So I went out and found some free courses. It was low barrier to entry, didn't cost a ton of money. I also knew that I was a very visual person, so I needed something where like I had a product to show at the end of it. So I jumped in on a lot of fun tutorials. Actually, when Make School started, they did a lot of games. And so that one was actually fun. I did a lot of their tutorials as well because I could say like, "Hey, look, I made this game that's like pretty much like Angry Birds, except it's not." So I could show my friends, and like it was something tangible for me to see. It's just very important for me to be like uh, to have visual things. Um, so yeah, just kind of like setting out goals. And something that I've currently been doing actually is every morning writing out three things that I want to accomplish for the day. And a lot of times that does center around like my biggest priorities because there's always going to be different priorities pulling at you, depending on where you are in your life. And so, define what those three are. And if you accomplish those three, great. If some other things kind of slip, that's fine. It's okay for priorities to shift here and there. And then if you want, you could also do like one or two big priorities for the month and like what's your number one goal for the year and kind of go back to those at the beginning of each month or each week, things like that.
I love that. That's such a big and really underrated productivity hack too. Having concrete goals to work towards is, I mean, kind of life changing. And it's really something that I think people don't focus enough on. But recently, even with coding, I've started doing things like, okay, what are the three big things, or what are the two big things? What are the two big features I need to get done in this 2 hours? And it makes such a big difference versus just kind of looking at the screen and being like, okay, I could do this or this or this or this, and not really getting anything done.
Exactly. And even if you do get something done, there's a sense of accomplishment when you say, I finished the thing that I set out to do. So you could get a ton done. Maybe you didn't finish the project and you're sitting there at the end of the day after a very productive day and saying like, well, I didn't finish the project. But if you turn it around and say like, here are the things I did finish, like maybe it's 5 out of the 10 things that need to get done before the project is over, like that gives you a sense of accomplishment. It sets you up for the next day, sets you up feeling successful and having done something. And I think that's super important.
And also, to go along with that, is there one big habit change that you've made throughout college or your career that increased your productivity or motivation? And if so, what was it?
I will say that in high school and in college, I did not master these. So these came a little bit later for me, but learning to prioritize, which is what we were just talking about, figuring out a way that worked for me in terms of prioritizing things, that one was huge. And along with that, getting enough sleep. I definitely coasted on like 2 to 4 hours of sleep a ton in high school and college. So I wasn't great at it back then. I would say in my mid 20s, I started focusing a little bit more on health and wellness overall. I had always kind of been into fitness, but wellness as a whole is like something else. So like you can work out, but if you don't sleep enough, like your body doesn't have enough time to recover. And that's the same thing with your brain. If you're not ready to attack the day, then you're just not going to be as productive. And I know we read stories about super successful people that are able to do it, but I've actually read a ton of stories about other people that do prioritize their sleep and make sure that they are ready in the morning to get going and be super productive with the time that they have set out for that day, and being smarter about your time. So I think when I started prioritizing sleep, that's when I started to learn to prioritize something, and then things kind of started falling into place there.
Yeah. Do you feel like I've seen kind of conflicting thoughts about this. Some people say, if you work harder for a certain period of time, you can sacrifice diet or sleep or your social life or things like that. But I've kind of done that, and like you said, through high school, didn't do sleep very well. My first couple years in college was just not with it, not balanced. I was either all in school or I was all in work, and I never really found that, okay, let me eat well, let me take care of my whole self. So how do you feel on that? Is it more you can sacrifice this for a certain period of time, or is it, it's kind of all about balance overall?
Yeah, so in high school and college, I was definitely like a work hard, play hard, uh, forget about sleep and diet. Like I just wanted to go to all the extremes, like get everything done, but also make sure that I got to like do all the exciting things that I wanted to do. I was living in New York City, and I was like, I'm gonna do everything. I don't think you can have it all. We can say that. And I think you decide at certain points in your life, certain things are worth it. Would I have gone back in high school and college and necessarily like changed it so that I did prioritize my health and fitness and wellness? That's really hard to say. I did have a ton of fun. Going to college in New York was one of the best times of my lives. So it's really hard to say, but at this point in my life where I have done all the work to make sure those things are priorities, I wouldn't go back to that sort of lifestyle. And, I have chosen to spend, we only have 24 hours in a day. I have chosen to spend X amount of hours on my wellness every single day, which is something I didn't do in the past. So I think that is super important. I understand that there may be times where it might be more important to have a little bit more fun. And I'll say this, like maybe I could have dialed back a little bit of the fun in college and said like, let's like get a little bit more fitness and like think about your overall like diet a little bit more, and like found that balance as you mentioned earlier. That I can say like maybe there was like a little bit more of a shift towards a balance I might have like done. But yeah.
Definitely. I completely understand. And so kind of going along with wellness and things like that. So speaking of keeping a balance and trying to make time and setting aside time, is there a certain way or certain tactics or tips that you could give to someone who is seeking to find that balance, but maybe doesn't really know how to manage their time or feels like they don't have time to take care of themselves or to get, 8 hours of sleep every night or to make healthy meals and things like that? What kind of advice would you give for someone looking to figure that out?
I would say that everything takes trial and error. What works for me doesn't work for everybody. So everybody sort of has to try their own things, and you have to find the things that work for you. I will say that I think taking everything one step at a time is actually the bigger wins if you can make them become a consistent thing. So I mentioned that like in college I was having fun and like I studied hard, I played hard, I didn't sleep. I didn't go from that to where I am right now in like overnight. I think it's just about taking everything one step at a time, and you'll have steps that you at different points you'll go back and you'll go back forward, and like it's a journey. It's not like I said before, you're never finished with anything. So yeah, I think that's the biggest thing to remember. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And lastly, just what other big tips do you have for people who are maybe entering into a tech career or seeking a tech career, learning how to code, or maybe just people who are starting in college and trying to figure things out?
um I would say like there's no one path to success, and everybody's journey looks very different. And like my journey to tech was all over the place. And even though I'm a software engineer right now, I'm also a fitness instructor on the side. And my entire social media presence is only about fitness. And so people that know me on social media wouldn't even know I'm a software engineer. So there's no cookie cutter mold. You can be whoever you want to be and still be a programmer. I know a lot of times we have this image of like somebody hunched over at a desk and just like typing on the keyboard and just drinking coffee and like staying up until like 4 a.m. and waking up at 1 p.m. So like you don't need to look or be a certain way. And there are going to be times when things are hard. I think there is a steep learning curve, and everything that you learn in school, and working on projects is great, especially working on projects with teams. That'll help a lot in the workplace. But then once you get into a workplace, it's like you learn all these other ways that like teams work together, and there's so many other tools. And a lot of times it's going to feel like there's so much and I can't possibly like learn everything and be successful, and imposter syndrome is so real, and I still struggle with that all the time. But there are no failures, and every time like something doesn't happen for you, I choose to look at it as like, okay, what did I learn from this? And then you build on that, and then you become successful. So things are going to be hard. I remember at the beginning, I was like, command line, what is a command line? Like, what are these prompts? Like, I don't understand. Bash, like, oh my God, so much stuff. And I would just like look over and everybody's just like typing at their computers. And I was like, wow, I'm not supposed to be here. Like, I can't do this. But, like I stuck with it and just kept trying, asked different people, use instructors, use your contacts, use your network. Like, people are super supportive, and find the right people, like, and also find the right companies too. Like, don't be afraid to say no just because you got your first offer. Like, if something feels off or if the fit doesn't feel right, like, you know, take some time and find the company that will fit you, that will support you, and that will help you grow. Um, I think that's also super important, and will help advance you in the way that you want.
Definitely, definitely. What you said about imposter syndrome and looking around the room and everyone else kind of has things figured out, I just really want to expand on that because this is such a big thing and something I see so many of my peers struggling with. Learning how to code is hard, and it's something that, especially if you're going to coding meetups or, doing online hackathons and things like that, you see all these other people who seem to really just like know what they're doing. Nobody just jumped into tech and just knew what they were doing. It's definitely a huge learning curve, just like you said. So I
Yeah.
think that's a really, really big thing that, I'm hoping some other people can maybe take away from this, because that's the biggest thing that I struggled with when I first came into this is just I feel like I don't belong, or I'm never going to learn this, and that's just not true.
Yeah, and honestly, the person that you're looking at to the side that's like typing something is probably searching Google saying like, how do I do this? So like everybody's probably going through the same thing. And you get through it as a community, use each other and just help each other.
Definitely, definitely. Thank you so much, Leslie, for all of your insight and experience and tips. I really appreciate everything that you had to say today. And thank you so much for taking the time this morning.
Of course, happy to be here. It's great